My girlfriend married a wealthy man because I was not her level, but karma had other plans for me. My name's Jake. I'm 28, and I was dating Sarah, 26, for 2 years. We met at a friend's party and got along well. I worked as a warehouse supervisor, a steady job but not high-paying. Then she met Ethan, 55, a wealthy tech startup owner, at a networking event for her marketing job. She started mentioning him often, canceling our plans, and focusing on her phone all the time. One night, she came to my apartment and broke it off. She said she was leaving me for Ethan because he had money and status, things I couldn't give her. She wanted a better life, and just like that, 2 years were over because I wasn't on her level after Sarah left me for Ethan. I was wrecked for a few days. She made it clear why she chose him. His wealth put him in a different league, and she called me pathetic for not seeing it. She said we were never equals, that I'd never match up to what she deserved. It stung bad. I'd given her everything I had, but it wasn't enough. Still, I didn't beg or chase her. I swallowed the hurt and moved on. I kept my head up, focused on my job, and didn't let myself dwell on her too long. Weeks turned into months, and I started feeling like myself again. I wasn't pining for her. I was done. Meanwhile, she was living her new life with Ethan, probably in his fancy penthouse, and I figured that was the end of it. Then one day, I got a new job. It wasn't anything huge, just a step up to assistant manager at a bigger warehouse across town. Better pay, more responsibility, but still blue-collar work. I was there a few weeks when Sarah walked in. She'd come to pick up some order for her job, saw me in my uniform, and laughed. She said I was stuck, that this was my fate, working jobs like this forever while she was out there living better. She didn't even try to hide the smugness. I didn't say much back, just let her talk. Inside I was pissed, but I kept it together. She left, still chuckling, and I went back to work. That moment stuck with me, though, not because I missed her, but because it showed how little she'd ever thought of me after Sarah laughed at me at my new job. I didn't let it shake me for long. I was assistant manager at the warehouse now, making decent money, and I liked the work. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. I kept showing up, doing my job, and over time, things started shifting. The company noticed I was good at keeping things running smooth, inventory was always on point, and the crew respected me. About 6 months in, they offered me a promotion to full warehouse manager. It came with a solid raise and a small office instead of just a clipboard. I took it, no hesitation. I wasn't trying to prove anything to Sarah or anyone else, I just wanted to keep moving forward. Meanwhile, I heard bits and pieces about her life with Ethan through mutual friends. She was living in his big downtown place, going to fancy parties, and posting pics online of her new high-end lifestyle. I didn't check her socials myself, didn't care enough, but word got around. Sounded like she'd gotten everything she dumped me for. Fine by me, I was busy building my own thing. My new role kept me on my toes, managing schedules, dealing with suppliers, and making sure shipments went out on time. I even started saving up, got a better apartment, nothing crazy but a step up from where I'd been. Life was stable, and I wasn't looking back. Then, out of nowhere, Ethan ditched her. I didn't get the full story at first, just rumors that he'd kicked her out. Turns out, after about a year together, he decided she didn't fit his world. He was 55, rich, connected, and she was just a 26-year-old marketing assistant with no real clout. He told her she wasn't his level, not classy or polished enough for his circle. She chased status and got burned by it. Next thing I knew, she was knocking on my door. I hadn't seen her since that day at the warehouse, and now here she was, looking rough, asking to come in. She said she'd made a mistake, that Ethan was gone, and she wanted me back. I wasn't ready for that conversation, not yet. Sarah showed up at my apartment one evening, a little over a year after she'd left me for Ethan. I'd just gotten home from work, still in my manager's jacket, when I opened the door and saw her standing there. She looked different, tired, less put together, no trace of the fancy clothes she'd started wearing with him. She said she needed to talk, so I let her in, mostly out of curiosity. She sat on my couch and started spilling everything. Ethan had dumped her a few weeks ago. She explained how he'd called her out, saying she didn't belong in his world. He told her she lacked the status and refinement to keep up with his rich friends and business contacts. She'd been living in his penthouse, relying on his money, and when he kicked her out, she had nothing. She'd moved into some cheap rental, scrambling to get by. Now she was here, telling me she'd been wrong to leave me. She said she loved me, that I'd always been good to her, and she regretted chasing Ethan's wealth. She wanted us to start over. I listened, arms crossed, not saying much. Her words didn't hit like she probably hoped they would. I remembered how she'd called me pathetic, how she'd laughed at my job, how she'd walked away without a second thought. Now she was back because her plan fell apart. I didn't feel sorry for her. She'd made her choice, and I'd moved on. I thought about my life now, the promotion, the better apartment, the fact I didn't need her anymore. She kept talking, saying she'd learned her lesson, that Ethan's rejection had humbled her. I could see she was desperate, maybe even sincere, but it didn't change what she'd done. I told her I wasn't interested. She looked shocked, like she'd expected me to jump at the chance. I said she needed to leave. She hesitated, then got up, tears in her eyes, and walked out. I shut the door behind her, and felt nothing but relief. That chapter was closed, and I wasn't about to reopen it after I kicked Sarah out of my apartment. I didn't hear from her again. She didn't text, didn't call, didn't show up. I figured she got the message. I went back to my routine, work, gym, hanging out with a few buddies on weekends. My job as warehouse manager kept me busy, and I was good at it. The company started talking about expanding, and my name came up for a regional position. It wasn't set yet, but it meant more money and a bigger role if it happened. I wasn't chasing status like Sarah had, just doing my thing and letting the chips fall. My life was solid now, better than it had been when we were together. I'd upgraded my place, bought a decent truck, and even started putting cash aside for the future. I didn't need a penthouse or $1 million to feel like I was winning. Meanwhile, I heard Sarah was struggling. A friend mentioned she'd lost her marketing job, probably because she'd been coasting on Ethan's connections, and was working retail somewhere. She'd gone from his luxury lifestyle to barely scraping by. I didn't feel bad for her. She'd bet everything on him and lost. I kept my distance from that drama, didn't ask for updates, didn't care. My focus was forward. I started dating again, nothing serious, just casual meetups. I wasn't rushing into anything after what she'd pulled. Work stayed my priority, and it paid off. The regional gig came through a few months later, more responsibility, a fat raise, and some travel to oversee other warehouses. I took it and ran with it. Life was moving fast, and I was keeping up. Sarah's visit faded into the background, just a weird blip. I didn't hate her, didn't miss her, honestly, I barely thought about her. She'd made her call, and I'd made mine. The way things turned out, I was the one standing taller now, not because I'd chased revenge, but because I'd kept going. While she crashed a few months after I turned Sarah away, she pulled a new move. She went to my mom's house. I found out because Mom called me one night, sounding annoyed. Sarah had shown up unannounced, looking for sympathy. She'd sat in Mom's kitchen and unloaded everything. She told Mom she'd messed up by leaving me for Ethan, that he'd dumped her because she wasn't high class enough for his world. She complained that I wouldn't take her back, said I was being too hard on her. She told Mom I'd changed, that I was cold now, not the guy she used to know. She even brought up my new job, saying I thought I was better than her because I was a regional manager. She whined that life wasn't fair, Ethan rejected her, I rejected her, and she was stuck working some dead-end retail job with no money. She told Mom she still loved me, that she'd learned her lesson, and begged her to talk to me, convinced me to give her another shot. Mom didn't buy it. She never liked Sarah much, especially after the breakup, and she saw through the sob story. Mom told her I was doing fine without her, that I'd built something for myself, and she wasn't going to meddle. Sarah left upset, but not before trying to guilt Mom, saying I owed her a chance after 2 years together. When Mom told me all this, I just shrugged it off. Sarah was grasping at straws, trying to worm her way back through my family. I wasn't surprised, she'd always been good at playing people. I told Mom to ignore her if she came around again. Work was keeping me busy anyway, traveling between warehouses, handling bigger accounts, pulling in solid pay. I was dating someone new too, a woman I met through a coworker, nothing heavy yet but easygoing. Sarah's stunt didn't rattle me. She could complain all she wanted. It wasn't my problem anymore. After Sarah's visit to my mom, things stayed quiet on her end. I didn't hear from her, and Mom said she hadn't come back. I kept my focus on work. The regional manager job was demanding, traveling to different warehouses, fixing issues, training new supervisors, but I handled it. The company liked my results, and about a year into the role, they offered me a spot as operations director. It was a big jump, more money, a company car, and an office at headquarters. I took it without blinking. I'd gone from warehouse grunt to running a chunk of the business, and it felt good. I moved into a house, not some mansion, but a solid place with a garage and a yard. I wasn't flashy, just comfortable. My new girlfriend, Lisa, stuck around too. We'd been seeing each other casually for months, and it turned into something steady. She was a teacher, grounded, didn't care about wealth or status. We got along, no drama. Meanwhile, Sarah's life kept sliding. I heard through a friend she'd lost that retail job and was bouncing between temp gigs. She'd burned bridges with Ethan's crowd, and her old marketing career was dead. She was living in a rundown apartment, barely making rent. I didn't check on her myself, didn't need to, but word got around. She'd gambled on climbing the social ladder and fell hard. I didn't gloat or feel bad, it was just facts. My days were full, work meetings, trips to check sites, nights with Lisa or my buddies. I built something real, step by step, while Sarah's choices blew up in her face. She'd laughed at me once, said I'd be stuck forever, but now I was the one moving up. She'd called me pathetic, but I wasn't the one scrambling. Life had flipped the script, and I was on the winning side without even trying to spite her. A couple years after Sarah tried talking to my mom, I ran into her again. I was at a hardware store picking up stuff for my house, some tools and paint for the garage. I turned the corner, and there she was, working the register. She looked worn out, hair messy, wearing a faded store vest. I didn't plan it, it just happened. She saw me, and her face froze. I had a cart full of supplies, dressed in my work jacket, keys to my company car in hand. She rang me up, hands shaking a little. She didn't say much, just asked if I wanted a bag. I said no, paid, and that was it. I walked out, loaded my stuff, and drove off. I didn't feel smug or sorry, just nothing. Later, I heard from a friend she'd asked about me after that. She told him she couldn't believe how far I'd come, that I was doing better than she ever expected. She said she regretted everything, that she'd thrown away something good for nothing. She was still stuck, same job, same cheap apartment, no way out. I was running operations for a growing company now, living in my own place, with Lisa by my side. We'd gotten serious. I was even thinking about proposing. My life was full, stable, mine. Sarah's was a mess she'd made herself. That moment at the store was the last time I saw her. I didn't need to say anything, she could see it all in front of her. She'd chosen Ethan's wealth over me, got dumped for not being his level, and then I turned her away when she came crawling back. Now she was watching me thrive while she sank. It wasn't revenge, it was just how things played out. It's been a few years since that hardware store run-in with Sarah, and that's where this story ends. I'm 33 now, married to Lisa. We tied the knot last year, small ceremony, just family and close friends. I'm still operations director, pulling in good money, and we bought a bigger house outside the city. Life's steady, work's busy, Lisa's teaching, and we're talking about kids soon. I don't hear much about Sarah anymore. Last I knew, she was still in that dead-end job, single, stuck in the same rut. She chased Ethan's wealth, thinking it'd lift her up, but it left her with nothing when he ditched her. She tried coming back to me, but I'd already moved on. I didn't forgive her, didn't need to. She'd made her bed. Looking back, her leaving me was the push I didn't know I needed. I climbed the ladder at work, built a life I'm proud of, found someone who fits me. Sarah called me pathetic once, said I'd never be her level, but I ended up higher than she ever got. She laughed at my job, predicted I'd be stuck, while she aimed for the top and crashed. Ethan dumped her for not being his status, and now she's the one scraping by. I didn't set out to prove her wrong, it just happened. Karma, I guess. She bet on money over me, and I came out ahead without even playing her game. That's it, the whole mess. I don't think about her much these days. My life's too full for that.